All right, all right. Jon Mitchell, it's good to have you on today. So, followers, what we've got going on today is we're going to take a look at a new entry level offering, which is a hair tissue mineral analysis. And it's not something that hasn't been available in the work that we do, but it's just been highlighted to me that I need to emphasize it more as an entry point for not quite as much of a financial investment as our advanced premium labs. So today, me and Jon, or Jon primarily, being the clinician that I work with in terms of the clinical side with the lab work, urine analysis, stool testing, hormone testing, anything that you might need on the clinical A to Z that I might not have the prowess to talk about. You know, my specialty being applying the nutrition from the labs for you and then taking you through the environmental component. Jon is going to talk us through the hair tissue mineral analysis test today in terms of what it can do and what it can't do compared to a NutriVal Fit 132 food sensitivity test, which is our premium package. So, Jon, thank you for your time today and looking forward to what you've got for us. And I'll interject questions throughout to kind of round out the conversation and make sure you guys thoroughly understand how the hair tissue mineral analysis really can give you a snapshot and a roadmap of where your starting point is with macronutrients and food to the degree that it can and to the degree that it can't based on what it offers compared to the premium labs. So I'll turn it over to you, Jon.
Oh, that was great. Yeah, so hair tissue mineral analysis, it's been around since like the 40s and 50s. And initially, they were using it for forensic toxicology. They're looking for heavy metal exposure, different types of environmental contaminants. They use it on animals for nutritional research. So it's something that's been around for a while. And what a hair tissue mineral analysis is they're taking a hair sample and they found like during that period of time, the researchers that as your hair is laying down keratin, which is a protein that kind of gives your hair its structure, your body also lays down minerals. So it's a good medium term picture of the amount of minerals that are circulating in your body. So when we say the word tissue, a tissue is essentially what makes up your organs. Your organs are made up of tissues, tissues are made up of cells. So when we're looking at a hair tissue mineral analysis, we're getting a snapshot of what your tissues are made up of mineral wise. And this can be really, really useful. So the main person who created this or who took this into a more nutritional realm for humans and making sure we can look at things beyond just like heavy metal exposure was Dr. Pollack, and he was like in the 70s, and he was doing this research. He was a PhD who did nutritional biochemistry. And he found that we can use these minerals and specifically the ratios to get insights into different organ systems in the body. We can look at the thyroid, we can look at the adrenals, we can look at your stress response, your autonomic imbalance, your fight or flight versus rest and digest. So minerals, we always say minerals move the molecules, or minerals are the basic spark plugs of life. They control thousands of biochemical processes in your body. So by looking at minerals and knowing how to interpret them and look at the different ratios, we can get a lot of good insight into what is going on within your body without something more invasive. So what's really nice about HTMA is you do it at home, it doesn't go bad. It's very simple to collect and it's quite accurate over time. So it's because the minerals accumulate over the course of several months, it's giving you a good average of what that mineral exposure is in your body. If we contrast that to blood, if you get a blood sample, your body really tries to keep your blood in homeostasis. It really wants to keep it very, very it doesn't want to fluctuate very much at all. And because of that, you can it's going to be hard sometimes to find deficiencies and excesses in your blood because it's going to pull resources from tissues, from bone, from muscle to help keep blood levels in balance. So the tissue can actually be a better indication of deficiencies and imbalances as opposed to blood levels. So this is one way where an HTMA can actually be even more useful than blood labs at times. So that's the HTMA in a nutshell as far as the specifics. But again, with these minerals, we can also infer if there's any vitamin deficiency. So even if you don't get something like a NutrEval, which is a more comprehensive nutritional biochemical panel, which really details your vitamins, your minerals, your fatty acids, and whatnot, we get some good information here because different minerals require different vitamins. Calcium requires vitamin D. Zinc metabolism requires vitamin B6. Vitamin A is impaired by zinc deficiency. So we can use these minerals in this test to kind of get an idea of what's going on vitamin wise as well. So it's a very useful test. I'll use it a good bit, and I just want to walk you through what that looks like. So I'll share my screen here. And this is what a hair tissue mineral analysis test looks like. And you'll get your minerals and it will give you different levels here. We also can look at toxic metals, which is very useful. We can look at some trace minerals, which generally are a little bit harder to get through the diet. And then the most important part, we look here at your mineral ratios. And again, these different ratios are going to they're going to tell us about different body systems. When we look at calcium and magnesium, for instance, this is a blood sugar ratio. Calcium to potassium is your thyroid ratio. Zinc to copper can give us a really good indication of immune and neurotransmitter function. So just on these ratios, we can really infer a good bit about what's going on biochemically in the body. Um, so one thing that I would highlight here, I want to give you a few examples of like the utility of this. So we'll start with this one here. This was from a client of mine who had a very high aluminum exposure. And so when we look at this test, it allows me to ask them, where's the aluminum coming from? And we found that he was using aluminum deodorant 3 times a day, and he was at a 14. This is an extremely
Wow.
high level for aluminum. And when you're at this level, it can start to affect you physiologically. You can start getting brain fog, difficulty finding words, lower energy. Like there are symptoms that you can express with an elevated aluminum, gut symptoms, constipation, and whatnot. So when you see something like this, you go, okay, we want to start balancing these minerals. We want to be able to give you the minerals and the right ratios that's going to help you detoxify this aluminum as opposed to doing some sort of like heavy detoxification protocol that you don't really need. So what's interesting about this test is, again, we're looking at things over a period of time. And when we look at aluminum, this is not just about exposure, but it is also indicative of your body's detoxification capacity. I can have somebody who had the same aluminum exposure, but it would show up really low. And that would, to me, indicate that you're not detoxifying properly. So what that would look like is when we took this person off of aluminum and started detoxing, again, just using some very basic, minerals, silica and sauna and things like that. On his next test 4 months later, his aluminum increased. It over doubled. So that tells us that he was significantly excreting aluminum. We were upregulating detoxification in this person.
Wow.
This was after he stopped using aluminum deodorant. You would think, oh, we stopped, this should go down. But when you upregulate detoxification properly by balancing minerals, you can get an increase. So the body was doing what it needed to do here to excrete.
Mm.
And then when you look 5 months later, 0.55, it pretty much dropped to normal.
Whoa. So if I can interject a question, what protocols was it just basic nutrition and some supplemental mineral complexes like you mentioned and a sauna? Did this person also do a NutrEval plasma and other more advanced testings or did
Yes, he did. Yeah. So yeah, resources weren't an issue in his case. So we had more data to go off of. So yes, that also does help us just get a better idea of, all right, what do we need to feed you? Types of supplements and what amounts do we need to give you? And then there are some like basic things that you do with a heavy metal exposure, like a sauna. For aluminum, silica is fantastic. So like Fiji water is extremely rich in silica. It's a great binder of aluminum. So there's specific tools we can use like that. So yeah, it's in this case, it was an extremely useful thing to see that we wouldn't have gotten on a NutrEval test.
got it. Wow.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool
Yeah.
information. Thanks for sharing that.
And then like on this test of this person, like this is there's a nuance to an HTMA as well. And some of it is not as it's a it's not straightforward or maybe not as clinical, but for instance, like this elevated calcium here, when you see this, if you just go to some random person who gets this test, you would go, oh, they're taking in too much calcium. But that's not really what's happening here. We call this a calcium shell. And sometimes what the body will do when it is under stress, when we're repressing emotions, is calcium. They use calcium to kind of blunt that response. So you will see increases like this in calcium specifically in people who are emotionally repressed. And
Hmm.
it's very consistent. So it always seemed weird to me when I first learned about this, but this is something that Dr. Paulek and Dr. Lawrence Wilson found over, thousands and thousands of cases that you have these patterns that show up every time. So it can really show you a lot about what's going on, not just physiologically, but it's sometimes psychologically or emotionally, spiritually, um, that you have to work on as well. So, like there's a lot of this isn't just a mineral fix, it's also a lifestyle fix, it's a spiritual fix, it's a psychological fix. So
Well,
this can be good.
yeah, to interject, it's encouraging to hear that because, obviously there's a certain amount of data that we can, apply to people's lives when they do the premium lab option. But for this option, which is coming right in around a $500 price point with a full review of findings with John as well as myself on the nutrition application, and to a degree the environmental application. If wow, so what you're saying is we can even see things that could be contributing to emotional stress response. We can help to a degree with environmental. If you see that aluminum issue, it's like, okay, that was an environmental issue with your cosmetics. Okay, we can
Yes.
apply that. So, in terms of the beginning roadmap for someone to introduce themselves to this journey of their specific need for nutrition and their specific environmental potential issues, I wasn't even expecting to talk about this today, that we can even talk about some of the environmental things through this test alone at that $500 price point.
Yeah. And the nice thing is you can track that progress over time. Like again, you see a little bit of mercury and aluminum here.
Yeah,
Okay, are we on track? What happens when we relook at this in a few months? Are these increased? Are we detoxifying
right.
appropriately? So it gives you a good starting point and also a way to track progress over time. So I think
One more
it's a
thing, if I can
good.
interject, and this is why it's so critical to have a clinician who has the experience and depth of understanding of how these systems actually work on a systems. I'm just going to kind of drop a little thing right here. It's like there's a huge issue in the holistic functional community right now about calling things root cause when the system they don't have an understanding of the number of systems that actually influence the root cause.
Yes.
And they're still getting you back to a subscription-based supplement model with no exit strategy from those supplements because they want to get paid in that consistent way. Whereas someone like John, when he sees an aluminum level go from this number to double, how many months later of nourishing this system and person properly,
Right. Yeah.
you
One
have
month.
you have the understanding and the nuance to know that, oh, that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. Where maybe, I mean, how many clinicians might not have that prowess and they would kind of freak out or not even know to look at this in this way.
And that was all without having to do any like heavy binders or anything that can create a whole bunch of issues as well.
Yep.
Like most of your functional practitioners will use heavy duty binders, EDTA, DMSO, which can have a whole host of issues. When you balance the body out, it is going to take care of detoxification on its own. And this was a great example of that.
Yeah, and I might have shared the testimony that I have, and I won't use names, just in terms of honor, but there was a very popular self-help guru who, I followed their stuff a lot earlier in my life. They had a major mercury issue in around 2017, and the testimony was is that they went to some functional medicine practitioners who used chelation agents that were way too quick to pull that mercury out of that person's system, and the person ended up in a wheelchair for a considerable period of time. The sensation that they described was like knives going through their kidneys.
Wow.
So this is a bit of the science that I'm aware of in terms of things like cofactors like selenium and
Yep.
different mineral binders that we don't want to freak out when we see heavy metal in someone's system. We actually want to nourish them properly, nutritional wise, get them supplementing on some of these specific gentle binders to essentially get their blood system prepared to start naturally pulling those toxins and heavy metals out without dumping it all. When you dump it all out of the bone structure, which is where heavy metals often are placed in the body as a safe holding pattern,
Yep.
you end up with real health issues, and a long journey of nourishing your system back to wellness after that detriment occurs.
That's a really good point too. Like as far as even aluminum goes, because a lot of it will deposit in the bone, there are people who say, "Oh, I have osteopenia, I have osteoporosis, a softening of the bones, or my bones are brittle." That can come from heavy metals. Heavy metals are going
Wow.
to they kind of substitute in for your actual minerals, for your magnesium, for your zinc, your calcium. So when you are able to remove these, you actually tend to strengthen different tissues, including things like bones. So yeah, you can have a diagnosis of osteoporosis. Why do we have this in the first place? Is it
Right.
is it mechanical? We're not moving, lifting enough. Is it nutritional? Is it toxins? Could be a lot
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah.
So.
So it's like looking under the hood with this level of understanding in optics. We as a team and just based on the training that we have, we never treat disease. We nourish systems and we understand the optics and point to the optics of, okay, is this a toxin issue? Is this an environmental issue? Um, because again, there's too many in this pharmaceutical and now holistic functional realm that are still on this name it, blame it, tame it thing, and they don't have the clinical biochemistry, much less environmental awareness of all the things that can contribute.
Yep. So that's what a HTMA can do. It's not going to help you look at specific hormones. It's not going to look at your vitamins in detail and fatty acids and things like that. That's what we use like a NutrEval for, and this is what our NutrEval plasma looks like. And essentially, this gives us a much more detailed and nuanced look at those different factors. We start looking at your energy production, your B vitamins in detail, which govern a ton of when we talk about neurotransmitters, energy production, methylation, which is how we turn genes on and off. We can actually look at specific toxin exposure and how well your body's detoxifying. What does your antioxidant status look like? When we look at your amino acids, these are your building blocks of proteins, and different amino acids have different functions within the body. Your tyrosine is a precursor to dopamine. That's what kind of gives you your drive and reward pathway. Tryptophan is an amino acid, is precursor to serotonin, which helps regulate mood, but it's also really important when we talk about like gut motility. So people who have, constipation, it could be a serotonin issue. So we just get a lot more detail here than you can get otherwise, much more so than your standard labs, even much more so than like a Function Health or one of those. We can just get a much more detailed breakdown of, for instance, your fatty acids and making sure
Right.
that all of these are in the right balance here.
Yeah, it's like,
And
do
this
you need some organic seed oils?
yeah, yeah. It's
Because you might.
they're not all bad. And that's what I always tell people is like it's not just about increasing omega-3s and decreasing omega-6s. You want them in the right ratios, and different foods, different fats are going to give you the things that you need or you don't need. So that's where Ryland's fantastic at being like, hey, we're going to give you more of this food, we're going to do a little bit less
Yeah.
of this one, we're going to balance these things out, and your body's going to function better as a byproduct.
Why don't you touch real quick just on the upper end of the beef tallow craze and the carnivore kind of wild rabbit hole that so much of the world is going down right now. What's the upper threshold of saturated fat? There is one, right? It's not
Yeah.
just, bathe in it, eat it, drink it all day.
It's all relative too. This is what's really interesting when you do a lot of tests is like I will have, say it's like 10 carnivore people, they will all have a very different fatty acid profile depending on what types of fats they're eating, what else their diet is composed of. So I'll have some people where their saturated fat looks great and other people where they're way overshooting and we're like, hey, we're creating a lot of like um, very like sticky membranes that we don't want. We need to balance things out with a little bit more omega-6s or omega-3s and get some more fluidity in there. So, yeah, everyone's a little bit different, but that's what's nice about when you get the proper testing. It is allows you to personalize the recommendations and say exactly how you need to feed yourself to get back into balance. And these are all, as Rylan says, these are all like upstream of the problems that we experience or the diagnosis we get downstream. You can say, "Oh, I have low testosterone." Well, why do we have low testosterone? Do we have imbalanced fatty acids? Do we have a low zinc and magnesium and selenium? Are we low in a certain B vitamins? So there's a lot of nuance that we can learn here that you're not going to get just by looking at the hormones themselves.
Amen. Amen. So why don't you just touch on the last page of the last couple pages of this in terms of the basic elements and
Yep.
the toxins that we can get. Maybe talk a little bit about the copper zinc thing because now give me a comparison. the copper to zinc ratio that you see on the hair tissue mineral analysis, what can you see and determine from that relative to the copper zinc ratio that you would get on this lab?
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, they're going to govern the same thing, but we're looking at more fluctuating levels within the blood as opposed to a HTMA. But I still find this very useful. It's still quite accurate as far as, hey, what are your ratios here? What do we need to feed you? Maybe short-term supplementation to make sure we're within the right balance. But again, as we said, minerals move the molecules. We have to make sure that they're not just in an optimal range, but they're within the right ratios. Like you never want a zinc below copper. Anybody who looks at this, they might go, well, they're both in the green, so they must be good. But if your zinc is low relative to copper, it can act as a zinc deficiency. So it can
Oh,
actually be problematic.
right.
And again, that can affect things. It can affect your testosterone, it can affect your detoxification. Zinc is the backbone to insulin. It can affect blood sugar regulation. So there's a lot of nuance to this, but that's why getting this data is very useful. And then things like heavy metals here, again, blood is going to be different than the hair tissue mineral analysis. Blood is a more current exposure. This is going to be within the past week or two, whereas an HTMA will look at over the course of, say, 3 months or so. So it's going to be a different snapshot. Both are useful. This will tell me, hey, did you have something recently that we can really pinpoint? The HTMA is going to say, do we have a prolonged exposure that we have to be aware of, or is detoxification an issue? Are you not excreting all those toxins that you're getting exposed to? If I saw elevations here, but it's low on your HTMA, then I'd start going, I wonder if this person's detoxification is impaired and we need to start upregulating that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
they can be even more useful in tandem for that reason. And then as far as last testing that we do, as far as food sensitivities, this is called the Fit 132. This is a blood spot. So what's nice about this is it's just a finger prick. You do it at home. And most food sensitivity tests I find are just very unreliable. They give a lot of false positives. Even the good ones give a lot of false positives because they're just antibodies. This one is a combination of antibodies and something we call complement. So it just helps us make sure that a reaction is a bona fide reaction as opposed to an elevation in antibodies, which can be positive or negative. It can just be your body is properly dealing with the foods they're being exposed to. So I find this is quite reliable, and food sensitivities are interesting. For some people, they have very overt symptoms. It can be gastrointestinal, it could be low energy, it could be migraines, even hormonal issues. I had someone who was reacting to like a few things like flaxseed and onion, cut it out, and they were diagnosed with gastroparesis. As soon as we cut those foods out, it was better. It was like 90% better. Um,
Wow.
it can be that profound. It's not always that way, but with certain people, it can be really night and day. The other thing that I like about this test too is they have a section here that looks at your gut, so we can get kind of an idea of, is there any leaky gut going on? Do we have any yeast overgrowth? Is there any bacterial products that are making its way into the blood through leaky gut? So it just gives us a little bit more data points that we can start to hone in on. Hey, are these food sensitivities because you're really reacting, or is it because you have a leaky gut? And that's really where we need to focus is on the gut and healing that. So,
Right.
yeah, I find this a very useful, but again, simple test that's done at home. And for me, simplicity is really important for a lot of people. These tests can get really overwhelming, so a simple blood spot's great.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I was shocked when I was introduced to these more advanced food sensitivity tests. For people who aren't aware, just looking at this screenshot right here, it's like, yes, you might be allergic to that lentil soup that you thought was a whole real good food. Or
Yep.
the gluten. Yes, the gluten is an issue for you. Or sweet potatoes. Oh my God, sweet potatoes are a superfood. I've been on a sweet potato diet. That's actually been creating a huge immune response that your body's been able to not been able to handle. So the good news on this front is that when we do this test alongside, again, the snapshot of the hair tissue mineral or the Nutrival plasma, we're actually seeing the optics of what your body needs for to be starting to be properly nourished. And the good news is that biotransformation and food sensitivities can change, especially
Yes.
within these categories that are being tested. And when we nourish you properly for a period of time, you can absolutely come back into the capacity for your body to biotransform and consume gluten, sweet potatoes, lentils, anything else. But the thing that shocked me in the initial number of these labs that I started seeing when I started this work around 2018, 19 was One person's superfood is another person's sensitivity.
Yes.
My goodness, from blueberries to turmeric to coconut oil to chicken to egg yolks only, not egg whites, to brown rice to white rice to gluten to different kinds of dairy, sometimes only sheep dairy, sometimes only cow dairy. Basically, it completely dismantles this idea that there's these certain inherent foods that are just good for everybody and bad for everybody. And this is a nuance that really needs to become the mainstream understanding. So I
Yeah.
guess the question that I have, John, which we didn't speak about ahead of time, is what if people wanted to do just the Fit 132 and a hair tissue mineral analysis at that $500 price point? The investment, there's another video that we have that I share with clients who are ready to invest a little bit more financially with the NutriVal and the Fit 132 test. But what is the price point for just the one-off Fit 132 test for you to do their review of findings with them? I guess it's a minimal review of findings, of
If you
course.
just wanted to do the Fit 132.
Yeah, without the package that we have for the NutriVal and the Fit 132.
Gotcha. It's 425.
Okay, so what you're talking about then there is a $500 investment for the two review of findings. One full review of findings with John on your hair tissue mineral analysis, and plus 425 for the Fit 132 food sensitivity test. So basically, you're coming in, considerably under 1,000 for these two tests that can give you a complete roadmap of your starting point nutritionally, some basic supplements, and which foods are actually affecting you or not affecting you, what you need to think about staying away from or not staying away from, versus the more premium investment, which ends up being right around 1,700 for the NutriVal Plasma with the full review of findings. Again, in addition, I spend an hour and a half with people who just are ready to do the hair tissue mineral analysis, plus or minus the Fit 132 test as well. So you're getting close to 2 hours of review of finding time to really have a clear roadmap for yourself in terms of your specific individual need and how that can change with the environment, the season, the geographic location that you're living in.
Yeah, it's a what I love about this is it stops a lot of guesswork. When I work with a lot of people, one thing that they say is they try a lot of different things, different diets, different supplements, and they just never know how long to stay on a path. If they don't start feeling better, even if they do, how long should I be on this? When you get the data, it makes it much easier to know, okay, this is a problem or it isn't. This is what I need to change, or this is what I can keep doing, and you can track progress along the way. So it just takes away a lot of that guesswork, which allows you to just implement. And when you have that data, there's less resistance to making that change. If people see on this, hey, all right, well, I guess I am kind of reacting to gluten. I'm going to cut out for a period of time. It's much easier than just going, well, I'm going to cut out these foods and hopefully I feel better, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure if I do. It
Yeah.
makes it difficult.
Yeah, and this is part of the reason why we totally don't suggest people just go after elimination diets, because although sometimes you can have a tangible physical response of feeling better for a period of time, there's just too much nuance in terms of the depth of these different food sensitivities that could really be the issue that you're not seeing. And you think you're allergic to the one thing when you're really allergic to another common food that you're eating, but you feel better for a period of time with this and then not after a while. And it's also why, one of our basic tenets is test, don't guess when it comes to your nutrition. There's no single food that's inherently good or bad that is a whole real food, and we're not saying that organic white rice is a bad food either. There's a balance of complex versus simple carbohydrates that can be better for one person or another person. But everything that is whole real, the quality, the quantity, and the context is everything.
Context is key.
Yep, yep. And ultimately, the freedom is the key. We are here to get you on your journey to understand what your hyper specific individual need is, and then ultimately how to help you come out from the chronic complaint industry, the chronic disease management industry, into a nourished system. But then beyond a nourished system with supplements, we want to empower you as much as we can to not have to be on that subscription-based model and believe that, your energy or your mental state is based on whether you took your, 5-HTP for your serotonin level or not. It's like, okay, we're
Yes.
going to actually teach you the foods that nourish that system.
Yes.
We're actually going to dive into, your mental, spiritual, psychological health, you know, and really come to, okay, this is a systems-based approach that is looking at all of the systems in the natural and the systems of the psychology and spirituality, that belief, ultimately agreement that you're in, that can be breeding the issue that you're seeing.
Amen. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome. Amen. So I think anything else that you can think of that we should cover in terms of the nuance here? Again, a little review for everybody. This is an offering that has been available, but I'm just kind of, we're marketing it finally a little bit more openly, for a full review of findings with myself for an hour to an hour and a half, depending on your need, and then about a 30-minute review of findings with Jon Mitchell, with the hair tissue mineral analysis as a starting point, plus or minus the $425 advanced food sensitivity test called the Fit 132. So that is what we're here to offer today, to you, and the promises that come with it, again, are a roadmap to the exact macronutrients that you need. Everybody is playing a game of getting the right amount of volume of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins in their diet. And the variety thereof is making a huge difference on their health. Things like whether your food is cooked or raw is going to make a big impact on your oxidation state. That's something that we can see clearly with the hair tissue mineral analysis. If you want to just touch, what supplement plans or suggestions can you give based on just the hair tissue and what you need the NutriVal for, John?
We get a good bit. Again, we always try and be minimalist with supplements. We're food forward. Um, I always pass my practitioner discount when it comes to supplements, so there's no incentive for me to give anything more than necessary. But we can get a good bit with the HTMA specifically, mineral wise, even vitamins, digestive support. There is a good bit. So of course, we'll get some more nuance with the NutriVal, but with the HTMA, it's pretty darn good. And then yeah, it just gives us a lot more data on, hey, if you're feeling low energy, if you're constipated, if you're getting these chronic migraines, where is it coming from? Or are there multiple sources, which is often the case? Are there food sensitivities causing these issues? Is it a mineral imbalance? Is it a toxin exposure? Is it impaired detoxification?
Yeah,
With this data, we can understand what that is and then help you start balancing it as opposed to, oh, we have a migraine, we're going to put you on sumatriptan, and hopefully that does the trick. We'd rather
right.
say, why do we have it? Let's fix those issues so you don't have them anymore.
Yeah, yeah, because a simple way to explain it is what these pharmaceuticals are often doing is they're forcing a compliance in a system of the body that's not getting to the cycle of deficiency or the pathway that's actually the molecules or minerals that are coming together to build that system's function or lack of function. And that's how we're able to see and get up underneath that.
That's right.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that covers it for today. John, thank you. And for those of you who are ready to move forward, you can drop me a message on the freedomthroughfood.com website, or however else I was in touch with you, whether it was email or text message. You can let me know that you'd like to start. I'm going to be looking into creating just a clickable link on my website for this, but a simple email or text will get us started to get these labs or lab ordered for you. So blessings and happy New Year, everyone, and to your health and to your individual roadmap of actually coming to the end of this journey of lack of discernment and understanding on what actually works for you and what doesn't work for you, and what supplements you need and don't need, and how you are truly going to walk in freedom out from under that whole narrative in this new year. All right. Blessings. Thank you, John. And we'll close it out with that today.
Thank you.
Amen.